If you're interested in consciousness, intention, energy healing, the law of attraction, quantum physics, or the paranormal, then this video contains an experiment you want to know about. This experiment is about far more than just moving an object with your mind. Today we'll see what happens when I perform telekinesis, also known as psychokinesis, inside of a vacuum. We'll discover major implications about how the human mind works and how you can empower yourself for the rest of your life. Hi, I'm McNamara. I'm an explorer of consciousness, and I help people learn how to use their minds to learn about themselves and about the world. A lot of you will recognize me from my telekinesis videos, which you can find online. For example, in this clip, you see me moving 2 toothpicks which have been balanced over a needle, using only the energy of my mind and my body. Lately, I've been referring to this type of telekinesis as macro telekinesis, in contrast to micro telekinesis, which some scientists use to measure mental effects on small subatomic particles, such as with random number generators. But is what I do truly macro telekinesis, or is there something else happening here? Is my mind affecting reality in a way different from what I believe? Recently, Dean Radin from the Institute of Noetic Sciences suggested I try an experiment using a vacuum chamber because of a principle known as Brownian motion. Brownian motion states that all the particles of air inside a sealed container are bouncing off of each other in a random motion, causing equal pressure in all areas of the container. He suggested that perhaps what's happening with my telekinesis experiments is that I'm not actually moving the large object, but I'm having an influence over those small air particles, getting them to move in the same direction at the same time and applying a force on the object. Dean has been exploring mind-matter interactions from a scientific perspective for many years, and after reading his books Supernormal and Real Magic, I was really keen on exploring this concept of Brownian motion and seeing if I could move an object once the air was removed from the container. Let's see what happened with the experiment. At this point in the experiment, there's still air in the container, and I can move it by putting my hands near the glass, and then just by looking at the object a certain way, I can get it to move as we see here. Then I turn on the pump to suck out all the air inside that container. Once all the air is out, you see that I try and move the object with my hands near the glass. At a certain point, I'm touching the glass, and then just by trying to look at it without using my hands, I'm still unable to move the object. So it seems that at this point, once the air has been removed from the container, I'm not able to use telekinesis to move the object. So let's think about this. If we compare the air molecules in the container to billiard balls randomly bouncing around a table, exerting pressure in all directions, what could be happening when I'm exerting my intention on the object? Perhaps something is happening between me and the larger consciousness system, or the universe, or reality. Whatever wording we want to use, something is happening to reorganize the motion of the air particles in the container. So instead of those billiard balls bouncing around randomly, they start to order themselves to move in the same direction and at the same time pushing against the object, like a sailing ship's sail being buffeted by the wind. It turns out that scientists have known about this for a long time. For example, in 1987, the German physicist Helmut Schmidt wrote a paper called The Strange Properties of Psychokinesis, in which he discusses something called the weak violation hypothesis. It states that the mind can indeed have an effect on the physical world when chance processes are involved. So we're talking about very subtle systems, very light systems, such as subatomic particles or air molecules or things like that. Which seems kind of like a downer because it means I can't really lift a car with my mind, but that's okay. There's really no room for inflated pride when exploring consciousness or doing scientific studies. So what does this have to do with you? Why is this important for anybody to have this information? It has to do with the mind and how we manage our mind on a day-to-day basis. If we think about the thoughts in our mind resembling the pool balls bouncing around randomly in different directions, I think you can relate to that experience, with our emotions going up and down and sometimes having a loss of directionality, or perhaps when you spend too much time watching television or the internet, and what we experience is really more affected by what we're seeing from the outside world instead of what we're creating from the inside out. But is it truly random when we perceive things from the outside world? There was something that happened during my experiment that can give us more information. I had a lot of difficulty getting the object to move even when the air was in the container. And when I inspected the mechanism, I found that there was a rubber ring in the base of the contraption that actually had a magnetic field on it. I used an electromagnetic field detector to find that out. I was really glad to find out that it wasn't just me, but that there was another force involved that was slowing down my progress. We might have things we want to accomplish in life, either in a few months or in a few years, and sometimes it can seem that we're never really moving forward. I would suggest that things like social media and television can have an effect on our mind just the way that magnetic ring had on the object. Even though I was trying to have an effect on the object with my mind, I was being slowed down by the effect of that magnetic ring. And even though we're trying to accomplish certain things in our life, we might be slowed down because our mind and the thoughts in our mind are being affected and swayed by the impressions coming in from the outside world, through the internet and through television. So what can you do to make your mind even stronger? What can you do to overcome those external forces? It comes down to two things. One is you might want to decrease the amount of time you spend in front of the screen watching television or social media. That way, those corporations and media companies that are trying to affect your decision making and your emotional state will have less power over you. The other thing you can do is meditate. Meditating is a way of structuring the thoughts in your mind and having some control over what happens inside of your head. It takes regular practice, but when you make meditation a part of your life, you start to make your mind a lot more powerful. And you get a lot closer to understanding why you think the way you do, why you feel the way you do, and what you can do to move forward in your life and accomplish the goals you want to reach. Hold on, we skipped over something really important. When I do telekinesis or teach other people to do it, we always focus on the object itself and have the intention for it to move. At no point do we focus on the air molecules inside and try and ask them to organize themselves to move in the same direction at the same time. So what's happening there? Now, if you're a reader of things like The Secret or the Law of Attraction or other similar philosophies, you'll understand what Helmut Schmidt said when he did this research that I talked about earlier. He refers to psychokinesis or telekinesis as a goal-oriented design. So isn't that interesting? What we have to do in life is keep our mind on the goal, and somehow the larger consciousness system listens to what we want to accomplish and puts things into motion for our benefit. So what does that mean? It means we have to work on our mind, keep our thoughts managed, manage our emotional state, and not manage in a controlling way, but to understand the influence of the outside world and those around us, and do something to train on a regular basis, like meditation, which I mentioned earlier. But there are other ways to work with our mind. So keeping our mind on our goals, nature intercedes, and we get where we want to go. All right, now I'm letting you go. Take care.